Alright, everybody, we are back with part 3 of our Indie Dev Stream Spotlight Recap. This is once again for the month of January 2020, and this is part 3. All the games you're seeing tonight were submitted by developers, and if you'd like to submit a game for an upcoming stream, please get in touch. For this first one, we are looking at a very odd game called The Longing. This is a literally real-time adventure game where you play this little, I guess like it's an imp or a sprite down there who has been tasked to wake up his king in exactly 400 days. And that is not hyperbole. The game is literally tracking things down to the second, as you can see at the top of the screen. And from the developer's little press point, that different events will pop up and your ending will be different based on how you respond or what you do during your time. Another thing, this is 400 days of real time with counting the game being off. So even once you have the game installed and it officially begins, your clock is running down whether or not you are playing it. Now, as longtime fans of Game Wisdom know, I do not like games that make use of real time. I feel that it becomes very hard to justify in terms of managing a schedule, and I'm afraid The Longing does not change my mind on this. As you've been watching this footage right now, it's taking I think about a minute to 2 minutes simply to walk from one end of the screen to the other. And that is painfully slow. The game allows you to set up shortcuts so that your character will automatically walk back to a chosen screen without you having to input it, but you're still moving in real time. And basically the moment where I just threw my hands up and said I can't play this anymore came right here after we walked up this very long staircase to a door that then took about 2 minutes to open up. This is one of those very experimental art kind of games that you are either going to be all in for this concept or you're going to be like me and run away in the opposite direction. And when I say run, I mean go much faster than our little friend here. But the game also features the complete work of stuff like, I think Moby Dick was in this one, I think Nietzsche could have been one of the books. So again, this game was not thrown together like quick and dirty by developers. I imagine they have a lot of passion for this concept, but it's going to really only appeal to a specific niche of gamers. And unfortunately, while I do respect the game for being like this, it unfortunately just doesn't work for me. And with that, we're going to move on to something that is, I think, a little bit later, and both in terms of content and speed, next. And that game is Tani Nani. This is a mobile puzzle game that was ported to the PC, and has a very interesting take on its puzzle design. Your mission is to get the two characters, as you see on screen there, to meet, and they'll move along their path lemming style. As in, they'll keep going until they hit a wall or an object, then they'll turn around and go the other way. The key puzzle mechanic in the game, though, is that you're able to shift the various tiles around, changing where things connect, where they'll fall to, and so on. Meanwhile, in order to get the best rating, you need to complete the objectives that you see in the upper left-hand corner. And the game is very much an idea, or very much that concept that it will be easy to get the basic reward, and it will be far more difficult to get the bonuses. And they'll reward you with additional outfits and character models you can use. From our play of the game, I think the main issue that I have is that it's very limited in terms of overall presentation. Once again, the game has a ton of levels. I think there's at least 100, maybe more, that you can play around in. But they're all just disconnected screens, like you see right here. And this is going to be, again, one of those games that if it hooks you, you're going to have a lot to do with it. But I don't think there's a ton in terms of motivation to actually get you to keep playing the game. Now, I did like the design of the game. What kind of attracted me to asking for the key in the first place is this idea of shifting the areas around and being able to kind of play with, I guess, like with that strategy, being able to alter things very quickly. And there's definitely, I think, some kind of advanced play to the game. And as you move along in the chapters, they'll introduce new concepts, such as in this area, in this world, you can walk along walls and ceilings, which I am fairly sure I may have broken the game at one point on it. And I think you'll see that in a second there. As he's just going to keep walking and wait for it. And we're going to have something like right out of Portal. There he goes. But I think ultimately with Tiny Nani, this is one of those games that the basic gameplay loop works. I think it just needs a little bit more in terms of presentation to get people interested in it. If you like puzzle games that are a little bit different, I would say definitely give this one a check. But if what you've seen so far kind of put you to sleep or you're just not feeling it, then I don't think there's anything else that's going to get you invested in playing this game. And with that, we're going to move on now. For our next game, we switch to something a lot more brutal. This is Spell Sword Cards Dungeon Top. This one is currently in early access, and the design is essentially a tactical RPG with a focus on roguelikes, and kind of the deck building or CCG elements are more on the side than the focal point. The concept is that we build a hero, we build our start out of choosing a hero, a faction, and then kind of a variation of that faction, which dictates what cards we'll get and what we'll have access to. Exploration is very simple. You explore a dungeon room by room. You'll always know what is coming up in terms of enemies, but random events may happen in specific areas. When you get into combat, it switches to this view here. Each turn, you're able to play as many cards as you can draw. And there are cards that may require you to basically use mana. And your mana dictates how many cards are going to be drawn each turn. So there's kind of a give or take of playing very expensive cards, but then weakening your hand next turn until you can recoup that. After combat, you'll choose your rewards, and the rewards are randomly picked. And you get cards of varying types. Weapons that dictate what happens when your hero card or hero unit hits another enemy. Minions that are very obvious, spells, and the interesting aspect are the treasures. Treasures are essentially super cards that each do something very special for you, and they kind of add to your overall score. With that said, though, to make use of various services in the dungeon, including upgrading cards, removing cards you don't need, buying items, you'll need to trade treasures for their services past the first time freebie. And this creates a very interesting dynamic of, again, do I keep cards that are really good or do I use them for essential services? And gold acts as both the in-game currency as well as a persistent element, which can unlock new heroes, new factions, and I think more as the game gets developed in early access. And at the basic level, I think the game works really well in terms of all these systems coming together. As with a lot of deck building style games such as Slay the Spire, you can get into situations where you can just completely overpower your enemies if your deck, spells, weapons, and upgrades are all on point. With that said though, there are a few issues to the game, at least in the version that we played. Again, with this being in early access, what you see may not represent the current version of it. The first is the difficulty curve. You're going to find as you go up or go forward in the dungeons, enemies will quickly have their attack and defensive, or attack and health values steadily climbing, way faster than what you can do with your individual cards. Suddenly, you'll be running enemies who have kind of like 3-4 in terms of attack and health, compared to your units could be at maybe 1-2 or 2-3. And this can lead to a lot of cases where enemies can just one-shot your minions in a turn. Another problem I have with the game is the UI. There is a lot going on, and while it may not be readily apparent for those of you watching this video right now, but every card has special abilities, every weapon can have unusual properties due to its range or what it can do, and the game doesn't do, I think, a good enough job of conveying that information. And a lot of times, I failed because the enemy used a card that just decimated me, and I had no idea that it was coming. And there are also several cases where they'll use the same enemy art, but maybe change the coloring slightly to dictate two completely different units. So it could be an angry orc with a blue tunic, and then another angry orc but with a red tunic, and they'll be completely different, and if you're not paying attention, you're in trouble. In terms of overall balance, as in the cards and the various factions, I did not play enough of the game to be able to give a solid look on that. But each one of the factions does make use of different elements or different strategies. We were trying out kind of a sacrifice deck, that what happens is you have cards that can sacrifice units, and then other cards that will benefit every time a card gets sacrificed, such as raising its own power, doing damage to the enemy hero, healing, and you get the picture. So there's definitely variety here. And another thing that you won't be seeing in this video, but we did see this on stream, was having quote-unquote boss fights. These are with enemies that take up 4 tiles on the combat stage and require a lot more strategy and tactics to win over. If they can, I think, do a little bit more with balancing or maybe streamlining or smoothing out the difficulty curve, Spell Sword could be a really amazing game and another healthy alternative for fans of deck building style roguelikes, again, such as our very obvious pick, Slay the Spire. But we are almost done with our Spotlight recap for this month, or for the month of January. And first, we're going to do our quick Patreon supporter and sponsor shout out now. And now for a quick shout out to our current Game Wisdom supporters and sponsors. Going forward, all Patreon supporters will get early access to our videos. And if you'd like to continue this discussion on game design, be sure to check out our Discord channel, link down below. If you're looking for more wisdom about game design, be sure to check out my latest offering of books, 20 Essential Games to Study, aimed for first-time developers and students looking for some inspiration for their upcoming games, and Game Design Deep Dive Platformers if you're interested in anything regarding 2D and 3D platforming design. They're both available in print, digital, and wherever books are being sold. For our last game, this is going to be Skull the Hero Slayer. The footage you're seeing is from a kind of like a press preview demo that went up in mid-January, but the game is going to be on early access, probably very close to the time this video goes up. And this is another 2D action roguelike, in some sense similar to games like Dead Cells, but with less of a Metroidvania aspect to it. In this one, we play as Skull here, who is on a mission to save his kingdom after the heroes have attacked. And he is a one-man or one-skeleton army. Now, the twist of Skull is how you gain power or how things grow over the course of playing. As you go through each area that is kind of randomly chosen, but I think feature handmade areas, you'll gain various skulls, which allow you to transform Skull into different forms. Some are like your generic fantasy kind, and others kind of mirror or ape popular characters. There's a Kratos looking character at one point, as well as a Ghost Rider. And each head is essentially assigned a different rarity, and will come with a specific attack, passive, kind of a special heavy attack, as well as a move that is used when you transition from one skull to the next. And this is a very big deal, as each one of the skulls will afford you different strategies. Some are faster and allow for more movement, some are like this one that are on the slower side, but do a lot of damage. And with the run kind of being randomly chosen, or the rooms you run to are randomly chosen, does give some element of replayability. As we played this version of the game, we did run to one boss, and I'm assuming there's at least a second boss fight in the second biome of the game. But the game is on the harder side. Healing is completely up to RNG as to where it will drop, and there does not appear to be any iframes. So, if an enemy hits you, and there's multiples around, be prepared to take massive amounts of damage that you may not be able to easily reclaim. Some enemies move so fast that they can even attack before you can kind of stun lock them. And it definitely feels like it's in favor of the enemies at the moment. The game does have passive items that can change or improve your properties, and the game hints at a very strong persistent element. In the opening area of the game, there are two characters who appear to be either shopkeepers or leveling, and there's a premium currency or a persistent currency. That is it's kind of hard to see in the bottom right hand corner, but underneath the gold tally, there's kind of these purple crystals. And the game's inventory screen also hints at being able to upgrade Skull. The problem, though, is that in the version of the game that we played, that system was entirely turned off, and it appears to be a major element of making progress in the game. So unfortunately, I can't say too much about what that means for playing Skull long term. The basic gameplay works. It's fast paced, there's a good feel to the movement that Skull has, but there's not a lot of variance in the game right now. Events are kept few and far between, and simply having the game choose a different area to pick doesn't really change what you're doing. Every room follows the same MO of enemies spawn in, kill them all, second group of enemies spawn in, rinse and repeat. And I'm hoping we see a little bit more in terms of variety as the game goes through its early access. But other than that, this will be one I think to keep an eye out on, or keep an eye on going forward. And like I said, I'll be curious to see what they're going to do with the persistent elements, and like those two guys that you're seeing on the screen right there. With that said, that I believe is gonna do it for the January Spotlight stream recap videos. We got up to 3 for this one. As always, I would like to thank the developers who submitted games, and we are always looking for new games to spotlight. So if you are working on an upcoming game, or even one that you just have a playable prototype, as long as you don't mind us taking a look at it on stream, please do not hesitate to get in touch, and we are always looking for new developers to come on for our live and recorded casts. Again, check out our Discord and Patreon link down below, and come back for daily discussions on game design here, and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. Have a great night, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel link down below, where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it. And tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.